I'd have no regrets if it failed tomorrow. If I failed tomorrow and lost it all, I had no regrets.
What up? I'm here with Dustin Phillips, a good friend of mine who started and runs a multi-million-dollar fishing rod company that he started in his spare bedroom. And I really just wanted to bring him on because I think he has a unique story that can help inspire or just educate somebody who wants to start their own business one day. And I really want to focus on, his story and how it's unique to him and how it can help you. So with that being said, the first thing I want to ask is if you meet somebody in an elevator, like what's your 10-second elevator pitch of who you are?
Oh, Lord. I probably would say I'm an entrepreneur, and there's not much to it other than, I own a fishing rod company. I mean, it's kind of weird when people ask what I do. I almost, you don't know how to say that because it's not something you hear like, hey, you own a fishing rod manufacturer. Like, that's not something, I don't think I've ever heard anybody else say that to me. So it's a little weird to pitch or tell people, but I think it's pretty unique and cool.
Okay, cool. Well, the first thing I want to say for anybody who's clicking on this video and watching this video, I want to be very clear that the reason I'm having you on and having other people on is like, I think everybody's story is unique and everybody has something that they can help share. Like everybody's story can help somebody else.
Absolutely.
And I think you have a very unique story and just want to give you a platform to maybe help somebody with, what you've been through. So my first question for you, before we go through the whole journey to get to being a business owner,
right?
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I think I've kind of gone through a couple of phases in my life. Early on, I skateboarded when I was like in elementary and middle school and stuff. And like, that initially you're like, oh, I'll be a professional skateboarder one day. But that evolved when I first met you. I skateboarded. You were like, Little League football star and all that. And, you eventually got me playing football and sports. And I think it evolved into I love sports. And I always kind of dreamt of, playing professionally or college and all that. Just like most people, you kind of envision your life is going to go, just get through school, just get through and you're going to, you'll be able to play sports and like do this and blah, blah, blah. So I think that was always like the initial dream, just kind of being a professional athlete of some sort. And, obviously things don't always go the way you think they're going to go. And here I am now doing something I would have never dreamed of doing at that time. Yeah.
And I guess my follow-up question is, when did you find out, or when did you realize, okay, this isn't possible? Was there a certain point, or did, over time, did your, passions, your dreams or whatever kind of evolve to something else?
So I think, everybody probably has, a little bit of, reality in the back of their head, you don't quite give up on your dream. I'm playing football in high school, and I'm playing at Lakeland High School, which is renowned for, I think I lost 2 career games in the regular season, playing varsity football there. And I mean, not regular season, the game before state.
Yeah.
So I'd never lost football games. We had college scouts there all the time. So part of me is the right person sees me at a practice or a game, I'll be good. I'll get a, offer. And I had some minor interests and stuff in high school, but I think in the back of your head you kind of realize I'm not quite or really on that level of I could be a college football player even. I think internally, but you don't want to give up on that until you're done.
And I've seen, and the crazy thing about that is I've seen a lot of people, for anybody who doesn't know, I'll say I practice college football. I won't say I played college football because I played maybe 10 plays. Yeah. But I've had a lot of teammates and stuff, and you see people grinding, and you're why are they still grinding after college? And the crazy thing is some of them have grinded for 2 to 3 years and then actually done something. Whether they've got picked up by a team or picked up by a Canadian team, and it's always I respect the hustle because it's you see somebody do something and you're man, what are they doing? Yeah. They're wasting their time. And then to see someone break through, it's it's a cool experience.
Well, and with my experience, us being close friends growing up, and then, we were always competitive. We've always played sports against each other and with each other. And it's you got to go on and do the college football thing. And it's part of me is like, oh man, I could have done that too. But it's interesting because now I know your path and what you took and like all that time and like you said, a lot of the practice and efforts that you put into it. And I don't know if looking back on it, that I don't think that would ever be for me.
Yeah.
And it's easy to look back and realize that, but sometimes it's easier just to take the reality at the time and kind of move on and find what's next. And obviously you never know what you're gonna stumble into. But
yeah, YouTube and fishing,
exactly.
Two things that I don't think any of us really ever expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say just to follow up on what you said, and me and Nathaniel talked about this a little bit this morning, is just like everybody's story is like different, and everybody's skill set is different. Like you can't try to emulate and be exactly like somebody else, because like your unique skills and talents, like I can't do.
Right.
And it's the same thing for everybody. So
yeah, and we found that out real quick whenever you got into the YouTube world and all that. And I'm like, I'm just seeing like just the evolution of you in the last few months of what you've learned and are able to do. And I'm like, I don't think my brain quite wires that way to where I could like do that exact thing. And it's cool to see though that just talent's kind of like shining through, and and people especially.
Well, yeah, one thing is I truly and honestly believe like your gifts and your talents will make room for you. Yep. Like if you really want to pursue something, double down on what makes you and hone in on that. There's like a quote that I've heard. I don't know who it was, but it was something along the lines like people are wasting their time trying to like spend all their time and self-develop and learn all these 20 different skills and become a master of all trades. Like there are certain things that just come natural to you that you can just do. And like, instead of spreading all your stuff in there, spreading all your capital or energy, whatever, in all those spaces, try to zero it in.
Yeah, hone in on what you are good at and know, kind of have an idea of how to do it.
Yeah.
too.
Cool. Well, yeah, I want to get into your story and kind of how you got to your point. But the last follow-up question I have before we kind of rewind is like, do you enjoy what you do?
Absolutely, I do. Somebody asked me this the other day, like, do you like running a fishing rod company? And I absolutely do. And I'm not even that big of a fisherman. I never have been. Like, I've fished growing up with my dad and family, and like always have been a part of my life some way or another, but it's never been like a passion. And sometimes you think, oh, you should only do something like you're extremely passionate about, but I don't think that's always the case. I think that there's a little bit of layers to an onion on that. Like doing something like running a business, for example, like that's what I'm passionate about. I love the aspect of running and owning and operating and like making decisions and planning. And I love that aspect of it more so than the industry I'm in. I do love, being in the fishing industry and, kind of learning that over the years and the people I'm involved with. But I mean, really, I think my biggest passion is the actual business side of things. Yeah.
So let's get into it. When did you start your business, or what was your journey along the road? Maybe not even before you started your business, but like, you're in high school and that's when you started it, right?
Yeah. So I was junior year of high school. I kind of back up a little bit. So middle school, elementary, and like a little bit of high school, I kind of tamed down a little bit, but I've always been like, and I've always been kind of like a troublemaker of some sort. Like I'm always doing something mischievous, and like I was always in trouble, like, probably a little bit of ADHD that I didn't realize, but I was always like doing something that I wasn't supposed to, or like getting behind the curtains of the school and just always in trouble and messing around. And it was never like malicious. It was always like trying to like figure out how I can like get around like whatever I wasn't supposed to be doing, like sneaking around the school or, pranking people and all that. So I never really had like a good focus on school and like the education side. Like it was a chore just for me to get through all that. And even through college, like it's always like last second. Like if I had to almost use like an adrenaline rush to like complete like basic tasks because it was just so mundane for me. Mm-hmm. I think that like, a lot of things like people don't realize is, not everybody's not good at like school and like the routine and the repetitive work. Like my brain is like, I'm always thinking of ideas and like trying to like do new things and stuff. And like, I think that translates really good into like the ownership side of the business thing. Cause you've got to always like grow and evolve your business. And, some industries, I'm sure like the more routine, over and over repetitive tasks, like that can be beneficial. Yeah. But I think like the way my brain works kind of it helps this business thrive. So that was a little cut off, but I started the business with my dad in junior year of high school, and my dad is a huge angler. Like, he fished tons of tournaments, has won championships, and like that's always been like an actual like passion of his is fishing. Like, so we shared that together. I would fish with him, and kind of just happened, I guess. Like, we just had some issues with some of the rods that we were fishing with. Like, they break a lot, and we couldn't get them like warranted and blah blah blah. And that kind of led into my dad wanting to start designing like custom rods with me and him. Like, hey, we should make this. Like, this would be cool. And at the time I was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. Maybe make some money, and I don't have to like, I quit my job at J Burns, like making pizzas and abuelos serving, whatever. Like, I can make a little bit of money on the side. That was really the initial thing. Was like, for me at the time, it was almost like, hey, I can just do this and
not have to take like a real
right.
job.
I can just do whatever. And like, I think for a long time, I feel like, and I never really have like asked like you or my friends, like it probably didn't seem like real or realistic. Like, oh, I'm making or owning fishing rod company. Like, for a while it was like, I'm just kind of doing it, or maybe people thought it was like I'm just getting, living from my parents' like pockets. Like, yeah, you don't really have to work, I'm just like Bull Bay, whatever. And I don't think people realize it was not anything like that, like starting and growing to where
and that's the thing is, really, I don't think anybody knows. Like, obviously, like, you're my best friend, we're best friends, but I don't even know like the intricacies or whatever, like, of what you go through and what you've went through, just because it's just not what we talk about. But just to kind of follow up on some of the things you said, like going back to the school thing, I have noticed that, or I've tend to notice that, like, not for everybody, it's not in every circumstance, but if you look at like business owners or people who are like breaking through like different industries, I feel like a lot of time they're not like the straight A students. They're like the rule breakers. And you see that, and you see like all these famous people dropped out of high school or whatever. Right. And I know there's people who are ultra successful with straight A's, all that kind of stuff, but I don't know. I think that personality tends to like push the limits.
And I think it's maybe associates a little bit of like you're more willing to be like a risk taker. Like, things you try things that maybe somebody with a more analytical mind is like afraid to do. Like, and that's a big thing about like starting and owning, running, whatever business related. If you can't be a risk taker, like it's going to be hard for you to like really, like you said, like break through. Like, I just don't think you can either you or somebody involved in your business needs to have that characteristic, I think, because it really helps break the mold. And like, we're not franchising a Dunkin' Donuts where like you're just getting handed like a menu and like, hey, here's your coffees, here's your and you're just selling the same thing over and over. Like, you're trying to break into industries a lot of times that like, in my industry specifically, and I'm sure we'll touch on it later, it's really never been done before what I'm doing. Like, it's like car makers. You've got your big car makers, and then Tesla pops up. Like, I'm not saying I'm Tesla, but that's kind of like the mentality I have. Is like, I want to shake it up and change this.
Me and Nathan talk about this morning. Like, this is how I envision like trying something new, whether it's entrepreneurship or even just like taking a risk and like stepping off the normal path. Is like, if I could just envision it, I just see somebody standing there and looking out into like nothing, like just sand desert. And like, to some people that's daunting, to some people that's just opportunity, like ready to happen. And I really want to get into, because one thing that I think is funny, or it's like, during those times when you were in the beginning stages or during those first early years, like, was there a moment when you thought, this can turn into something, or this is like, where is this going?
So I actually had an exact turning point. Like, I mean, it's really like when my whole life changed like completely. So if like junior year of high school, we started the business, and essentially what we were doing was like, at the time we had like a guy locally that like just did custom rods. So my dad was like, he was kind of like funneling money into like just having rods built and stuff. And like the whole thing that I learned in this period of time was, I didn't really understand, I guess, the financial side of the business stuff. Like, cause my dad was like just doing this. He'll tell you, if you ever talk to him, like he solely set up Bull Bay and this whole thing for me. Like he wanted to kind of like get me going and then just leave it and let me just do it, you know. And at the time I didn't realize, I guess, the financial side and the constraints and how much, you know, effort he put into like setting me up, which a lot of people don't get those opportunities, or like maybe they don't have investment money and all that. So I was very blessed that, you know, I kind of got to, you know, I got handed a great opportunity. But what from that point, you know, once I got out of high school and I was in college, I was in Tallahassee at Florida State at the time. I was pretty much just running like the website and stuff, like, and, you know, getting like $200 a month to live off. Like that was the trade off.
Yeah.
And what we would do though is we would do 2 or 3 big like trade shows a year, like local, like Tampa, you know, East Coast of Florida and stuff. And we would just build a bunch of rods. We go to these shows, and me and my dad, like, we were, you know, we're excellent salesmen. You know, that's really, I think, where we thrive the most. Is I feel like we related with our customers, and they liked us, and they enjoyed like actually like talking and interacting and stuff. So the rods themselves were irrelevant at the time. Like we could have probably had like the worst product and been fine because we were good at the sales side. So we were like, go to those events, and that was pretty much the extent of it. It was like a couple events a year, and then, you know, you're trickling through the year, you're selling rods and stuff. But all that was a few years of like kind of just like having the brand like there, like it was just there, right? Like we weren't running a full scale business. It wasn't like you know, this is my livelihood, this is his livelihood. My dad, he doesn't, you know, he's got his own career and job. He's a financial advisor, so like he does his own thing. So Bull Bay for the first few years was just like a fun little thing on the side. You know, I can like type a little website together and make a little bit of money on the side. We weren't doing a lot in sales, nothing crazy. And then I remember specifically, I think it was my going into my junior year in college, we had some changes in Bull Bay where it was starting to become a little more legit. Like I was legitimately getting like sales and inquiries, and like the guy who we were like paying just to make some rods at the time, you know, for us, our designs and all that, you know, he kind of like really dropped off a ledge, and like he couldn't get stuff done, and we'd have orders started to pile up. Like it kind of was like, holy crap, like we're getting like a lot of orders. Like at a time I'm like, you know, 20-30 rods in a month. I'm like, oh, this is awesome, like I'm selling product now. So I think I was in college, and like it kind of just hit me like this actually might have some potential. Like this could be a real thing. So I want to say that was like the moment that Bull Bay became an actual business. Like it was fun, and it was a you know, kind of a hobby thing on the side. And then there was a turning point where we were getting so much attention and traffic, and people were wanting to use our products, and I kind of was like, you know, I think I need to move back home and kind of like take this over full time. So I ended up leaving school, you know, transferred to USF. I moved in with my parents, and I watched YouTube videos on how to build fishing rods, and I went to the guy that we were, you know, getting our stuff from, and I basically got our equipment and took it home, and I started just learning how to build rods from scratch. Like I have no idea what I'm doing, and the whole goal was, okay, right now I'm going to learn how to build these rods, and I'm going to build them for these 30 rods a month, and hopefully start growing that. And that's really where that started for me for the business.
Yeah. And do you think college, like your college classes, like helped you learn about running that business?
Well, so you know, you take 4 years of school, and like the hardest thing for me was like I didn't want to be there. That was the thing. Like I didn't care. I got through, you know, what I needed to get through. And the big thing for me, my whole goal with college was, in my family, the only other person in my family who had a college degree was my older sister. We kind of were like the ones to first get out and get our degrees and all that. So that was really the main reason I even like went through college, was like, I just want to have it so I can, you know, kind of kickstart that, you know, with our family. And like, yeah, I have a college degree. Great. You know, it's an accomplishment more than like a necessity for me. So college, I feel like the classes themselves, I didn't learn a ton until I got to USF. I minored in entrepreneurship. So my major was economics, and like, yeah, you learn supply and demand, and you learn how to do like some, you know, basic projections and stuff, which is beneficial. However, the entrepreneurial minor, I think, is what really helped me like I think it helped me transform Bull Bay from what it was, which was almost nothing, to what it is now, because I learned in those minor classes, I learned, I had to create businesses from scratch and like present business plans, and I had to, do sales pitches and marketing stuff in those classes. So I think that absolutely was like phenomenal amount of information that I learned, and I apply a lot of it to what I do today. So yeah, I think if you're in the right, if you take the right classes for what you're actually wanting to do, I think it can actually help.
Yeah, no, I agree.
The problem is a lot of people end up taking stuff that's not relevant or like, it's just filler.
Yeah, if I could go back, if I could go back, I would try to do something more like more practical that I could actually apply to the real world instead of just like general philosophies or whatever. Yeah. So you move back home from college, you're starting this small business. Like, what is some of your biggest struggles, or what's your mindset running through this all? Because I can tell you from me, just in the last 6 months of the year, trying to do something on my own, like there's a lot of ups and downs, and there's a lot of times where you're like doubting yourself or doubting whatever business or product you have. Like how was that season like for you?
So I want to say the first year of just being fully into, actually managing, producing the product, to marketing the product, and doing the web design, the sales, doing all of that. It is challenging as all get out, because really what you're doing is you're having to not only make decisions on what your products need to be and like how they're going to be marketed to these customers, but you're also balancing like quality control and like, for me, learning how to do that from scratch. Like, I've gotten some of those products back over the years for like routine warranty and stuff. And I look at it and I'm just like, I don't know, a little bit, maybe I'm just lucky or whatever, but some of the stuff that we like put out, or, like I built back then, I'm just like, it would never leave the door today, because at the time I had no idea. I had no concept of what makes a fishing rod good. I'm figuring out as I'm selling this to somebody. I'm like, here you go. And then it's like, you get feedback and criticism over time and you improve. But I think the biggest struggle was the building the product and like, not really having an understanding of like what quality actually means. And like, to me, I think customers, that's what they crave, right? They crave quality, and like they want to be buying something with confidence. Like, you don't want to buy a computer that like shuts down every 30 minutes. Like, you want something that functions, it works ideally forever. Like, that's the mentality you have to have. I think the biggest difficulty was like that translating into the finished product. Like, how do I make that? How do I achieve that? Yeah. I think that took the biggest amount of like learning curve, was like figuring out how to build this like to where they're gonna make a difference in the fishing rod world, because that was the ultimate goal, right? Yeah. Is like break into that fishing rod world. Well, how do I do that? I don't know. I just had
you figure it out on your own.
You learn. You take a bunch of bumps and bruises along the way. I tell you that much.
Yeah, I know. For me, like, doing what I'm doing, like not being professionally trained in any of it, and like when you come across issues and it's like I know what I want, but I don't even know what the heck this thing is even called, or I don't even know what to do, and like the amount of stress that it is. Like, just to break through. But then once you break through and once you learn, then it's like, okay, like I got this down. Like, I never forget the first time I edited a podcast, it took me like 8 hours. Right. And I was like thinking, okay, this is stupid. Like, why did I do this? I should just go back and do like my normal old job. But like, it's in those times of like uncomfortability or uncomfort that like you grow, learn, and get better and better.
Absolutely. I think too, I think the struggles and the issues and stuff it's a necessary evil, like I think like there's no better experience than like learning from like, failures or like, missteps along the way, because, ultimately if that happens to you, you need to use that to learn what not to do on the next time. And you're not going to get that just by, sitting in a cubicle and stuff. I mean, you got to kind of just do it and mess up. I think messing up is the best way to get better, especially when you're early in it. I don't think messing up and like having like whether your business is product based or service based, like I don't think having like issues is really a big deal, because that's normal in a business. Even like now, like there's always something like you have to like fix or like improve on. But I think like people need to embrace like problems. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
embrace those problems and learn from it. Like, you know, take notes, figure out what you can do to not have that be a problem again. I think that's a huge thing. A lot of people may get scared. Oh no, I messed up, or oh no, I've had so many mess ups, it's unbelievable. But, you know, I've tried to learn from all of those as I go. And, you know, now I think like that's really been a big reason why like I'm able to, you know, help this business be successful.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what kind of just to touch a little bit on what you're saying about taking risk and taking opportunities. Like I think both of us we're in a good situation to take those risks and take those opportunities. Like we're blessed to have come from like steady family, steady incomes, or whatever, just a steady life where, you know, not everybody can afford to take those risks because they have to like provide for their family and things like that. And I think it's important that if anybody wants to be an entrepreneur, anybody wants to not even be an entrepreneur, because I don't feel qualified to be like entrepreneur advice, you know.
Here's the thing though, whether you realize it or not, you are like doing your own thing. It qualifies you as an entrepreneur, because that's really what it is. It's you're doing a business on your own, and you don't have a script, you don't have a booklet, you don't take classes. Like this is like, you know, throw stuff at the wall and hope it sticks. And that to me is the defining quality of entrepreneurship is just trial and error and just testing. I mean, you don't know if it's going to work. We don't know if this is going to work, but here we are, you know? Yeah.
And that's, I would say that's the best part about doing what I'm doing now and being able to have the freedom is like, I can try something like this. And if it hits the fan and falls flat, it's perfectly fine. But it's like, this is a part of my work schedule, and I'm able to open myself up to more opportunities. And I don't think most people that are in a corporate environment have that opportunity. And I have to I want to say this almost every episode, because I don't want to bash the 9 to 5. I don't want to bash like a corporate job, because I think that
it's good
helps.
For some people.
It does. And I think, and I'll probably say this to anybody I ever talk to, because I think it's true, but I think there's like certain type of people, like when they're put in a corporate environment or they're put in constraints or anywhere, it doesn't even have to be work, but there are just certain things in your life that you just know, like deep down, like this is it or this isn't it, and like this isn't for me or this is for me. And I think as people get older and they get kind of worn down with whatever life throws at them, like that fire within inside of them starts to dim and starts to go.
Absolutely. And
there's like a saying that my dad always used to say, and he still says it now. He said, if you light a man on fire, people will come to watch him burn. Like, and not in the in a literal sense, like people will come to watch them burn, but like if you're passionate about your work or you're excited about whatever, that energy or that passion, whatever you want to call it, attracts more people. And it just like builds more energy for yourself. I was talking to Nathaniel earlier, and we're talking about coming home from your job and just coming home being tired. And I can say that I never had like more energy now, like doing what I'm doing now, because I'm excited about the potential and excited about like my game plan going forward.
Like the next day there's something like a goal, like that's I think the cool thing is like when you are running and owning your own business or your own service-based business, whatever it is, it's like, you know, every day is an opportunity to grow and get better. And, you know, a typical 9 to 5, they provide things like structure and stability and, you know, and financial structure, especially, that, you know, a lot of people either can't afford to not have, or maybe it you know, they plug right into that, you know, that philosophy. Their mind works that way. It's great. And that's perfect for a lot of people. Like, it honestly is. You need you got to have those people in the world, because you need people who can just sit down and, you know, and get jobs done and like have routine, and, you know, having that. I think a school is a very, very like realistic, like real world, you know, how the real world works, because, you know, at school you're sitting at a desk, you know, 8 hours a day, you're doing like routine work and you're doing this, and you're kind of just following the script, right? Like, so that's perfectly fine for people. We're taught that. That's how it's supposed to really be. Is like, I feel like corporate America is in the schools and training, all that. It's like very normal. However, when your brain works the way like my brain works, or like your brain works, and like that fire and the light inside you to, you know, be different and be better, I just don't think it's possible to happily do those type of jobs. I just don't. I don't think I could.
Yeah. And I say,
and obviously you couldn't.
Yeah.
You did, but it wore you down. You know?
And once again, I just like I want to make it completely clear that like there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
And when you say be better, do better, you mean that like for yourself,
right? Exactly.
And like I sensed that so much for me too. Like when I was in that job, like working, just knowing that there's more, and it doesn't have to be work. It doesn't have to be. It could be whatever it is in your life, but like everybody's got that tug and that pull, and like they should chase that.
Yeah.
So when you are scaling your business, and I'm curious with this because eventually I want to do this, is I want to hire somebody or bring somebody on. What was it like for you, like bringing somebody on, like adding that extra sense of responsibility? You know, what's running through your mind when that happens?
It's scary. I'll tell you, it's very scary. I mean, I think reality really sets in quick whenever, like, you know, I'll say this. One, I'll give like a big shout out to my wife, because at the time we were newly married whenever I moved back, you know, just getting through school and all that, like graduating USF, and like that's kind of like all that just kind of snowballed into, you know, taking the business and running it full time and stuff. So I want to give credit to my wife for allowing me to do that, because like she got, you know, a solid job. Like it was enough for us to, you know, live a very modest, comfortable like life. Like we could afford, you know, to live off her income for a little while. But once I took that over full time, it wasn't like, you know, we weren't, you know, I wasn't getting like a credit card from my dad anymore to like pay for components and stuff. It was, you know, he kind of like, you know, he was there for helping like do events and like sales and marketing and all that. And he could be somebody, it was almost like he's like my personal consultant. Like, you know, he could help me like do things. But the financial thing was taking a business over and learning how to like manage the money and the sales and grow. Because the big thing, I think the difficulty is early in these type of businesses is you're receiving income, but you have to grow it by, you know, in a product based, a service or a physical goods like business, like having enough to sell is not the goal. You should never, you know, I don't want to have 5 rods and sell 5 rods. I need 10 rods and I need to sell, you know, 5, and then take the next 5 to turn it into 15. You know, you need to build your stock and your inventory. So I think the early thing was, before I hired anyone, it was getting to that point to where I could afford to even like grow the business and grow the product. Because ultimately, if you don't have product, you don't have sales. So I learned how to you know, take the sales and like turn it into more you know, more products, so then I could keep selling and keep growing it. My point is there, I think that the first year of me being completely on my own and running this, I think I've made like maybe 5,000.
Yeah,
the whole year.
and that's what I think. Oh, man,
like that's like now I'm like, I don't know how I was really able to like function like with that low, like even with my wife's income. But you're talking like, you know, you're paying rent, you're paying utilities and food, and like, you know, luxury items go out the door at that point. It's like necessity based, you know. Yeah.
And I think on the outside looking, and if someone just looked at your company today, they would think like, oh, it must be nice.
Yeah.
But like they would never know that, you know?
Yeah, no.
Like, and I wanted to hear more about like that season, like of your life. So you're just starting out, literally you're taking home $5,000 from the company, and you're...
And that $5,000 was, like that money was like based on when I had a little bit extra money in the bank, and like in the business bank, I would like pay myself a tiny bit.
Yeah.
Like that was literally it. I was literally like, oh, I got a little bit I can give, like, and it would be like random. I'd be like, hey, like I got $150. Like I'd take that. Like I wouldn't have like every 2 weeks I got a paycheck. It was, I got a little bit of money in, I can take a tiny bit out, and then as soon as I paid myself just a little bit, it's all purchasing more parts and components to build more.
So what kept you going during that time?
I think the grind and the potential like that it had, like, because it was always a case of like every single person at that point, because I think, you know, at that point we had, you know, I had taken the time and learning how to do this stuff and do it correctly, and I think like the feedback I got from our customers and people using the product was so good. Like, I mean, people were literally, you know, hanging, you know, our name out to the world and saying like, this is the best fishing rod I've ever used. And it was like a lot, you know, enough people were doing that. I didn't feel, you know, because in my philosophy in my business has been very, very like, I am never giving free product away. I'm never like, I'm not throwing stuff at influencers and like people who, but what happened is when I did that and I kind of drew a line in the sand, because you unbelievable. You'd have so many people every day, as soon as they like see your business is like, doing okay, they're, hey, I can help you. I give me stuff. Like, if you give me this, I'll give you, I'll tell everybody, I'll help you, and like, I think like, a lot of companies, like, they kind of just throw money at people and like or product, and like they just, that's how they grow their brand. But I think like what I really think was the biggest like help was doing it more grassroots, like getting people who want to be involved. The people who want to be involved in you, they're going to pay for your product, and they're going to help your brand grow because they want to be involved. Like, the people who you give stuff to, like, don't help your company grow. So like in an early stage, I think it's essential to establish like, the people that you're associating with early, big time, because there's a handful of people like we were, we're working with that, wasn't the right fit for the brand. And like, you don't want anybody associated with your brand that's going to like make you look bad. You want, if you feel like you're a high character person and company, like that, I think is essential for early businesses, like, working with, whether it's, wholesale companies or, fishermen or just the average customer. You don't want bad, character people working with your business, because it'll make you look bad. So that kind of is the basis of how I wanted to build this business. Was I want people to like our products because they're good, and I want the products to sell themselves. That's the ultimate goal. So getting to that point and like being able to do that and like make it affordable for people, there's a lot of learning in that, and really guessing,
Yeah, and so you saw the potential and you had the vision.
Yeah, so the potential is what really drove me to keep going at it and keep digging at it. Because like I said, like the actual aspect of fishing and competitively fishing and like doing those things, like, it's fun. Like, yeah, I don't mind fishing and stuff, but like the thing to me was like that feeling of like handing somebody a rod that you built from nothing. Like they whether it's a custom type, rod or something, but like doing that and executing someone's vision and like handing it to them, and then, just seeing like that genuine like happiness that someone has, like, wow, this is amazing. It feels great. This is the lightest rod, whatever. And then they fish it and they're sending you pictures of these giant fish caught on your rod. And like, that's just the feeling. It's like, all right, like I accomplished something great here, even if it's just one customer that's dissatisfied. That's the drive, is like, I know I can like make something that people want to use. That's the big thing. Because like, just like making, like, for example, you make 1 million t-shirts and you're just pumping them everywhere. Like, I don't think like, you don't always get the same, like, I guess, feedback from people because it's a t-shirt.
Yeah.
But having like a performance-based product that's more of a luxury item, like having people come back and want more of them, or like going, and touting you to the world because they want to, I think is really like a huge, it gets those endorphins and everything kind of rattling in your brain. You're like, oh, this is awesome. Now, how do I make this better? So that's really what it ends up being, is like, I just made this rod for me and you said it's perfect. Well, I want perfect to be better. I want to be better than this. So that's the evolution of the company, has always been like, how can we make these products better and continue to service these customers and stuff and grow it that way. And I think, that right there is like a big drive for me, is just always improving.
Yeah. And I think to like get through those hard times, there's this book. I'm almost repeating myself because I said this in the last podcast, but I read this book that my college football coach made us read. It's called The 7 Decisions That Every Successful Person Makes. And one of them was talking about, I think it was talking about Christopher Columbus and like how he wanted to sail across the world or whatever. And there's like 2 examples, and it said that it took him 12 years to find somebody like finance his trip. Yeah. Like, think about how many people would have quit along the way. Like, he had a vision or he had a dream or whatever that he was like going to achieve. And then there was like another aspect. I don't know if it's the same story or a different story pushing home the same point. There's like, someone's on this trip, they're in the ocean and they're trying to make it from point A to point B, and like the storms come or whatever comes and they turn around, go back. Right. But, the other boat or whoever the other person is, like, kept pushing through and made it to the end. And it's like, if you're committed to the vision, and if you're like wholeheartedly committed to something, like when problems arise, you're going to look for solutions. And if you're not committed, like when problems arise, you're going to look for like ways to get out.
Yep.
And that like parable lesson, whatever the heck that is, you know, I noticed that like in my own life, like there are certain things that come up that I'm just like, how do I figure this? How do I figure this out? And then there's other things that come up where I'm like, how do I get out of this?
Right.
And then the things that I'm trying to look to escape, I'm like, why am I doing this?
Yep.
Like if I really don't want to do this, I don't have to be doing this. How can I remove this equation from my life?
That's a really, honestly, I think that hits like the nail on the head, like perfectly. It's, you know, finding a solution because you want to fix this problem or be better or whatever it is. Like, you know, that makes it like worth the effort, right? Mm-hmm. Like, whereas like, you know, you got a problem and it's like, how do I make this problem go away and never come back because I don't want to deal
exactly.
with it. And if that was your every interaction with a business that you're trying to run or start or whatever, I would highly suggest like maybe reevaluating your priorities a little bit, because that's going to just breed misery over time.
Yeah. And even on a personal level, when I first started like freelancing and doing all this stuff, like it was hard, and like I couldn't even like fathom or think about how I would continue to grow or like make it sustainable. But like in my mind, there's like quitting was like just not an option. Turning back was literally just not an option. And there was a guy at my old work, and I said this on the Iced Coffee Hour too. He runs his own business, and he left the company after I did. And we were sitting in the office, and he's like, man, let me tell you something. He's like, every time it got hard for my own business, when I was running my own business and I wanted to quit, like I kept pushing, and then I like hit a breakthrough. And like he's like, I'm just telling you now. He's like, look at me in the eyes, and he's like, when those times come, like just keep pushing, keep pushing. And like that stuck with me. And there's been so many different things and different sayings that people have said to me over the course of my lifetime that like are ingrained in my head. Like I remember, I don't even know this guy's name, but I remember when I was at the gym before I went to college, he's like, I play college football. He's like, let me tell you, like that first summer, I felt like going home. Like I was there. It was just the football players. Nobody else was on campus. It was pretty lonely. It was boring, and I wanted to quit and I wanted to go home. But I can tell you, like once the fall came around, like it was the best thing ever. And I remember thinking, like this random guy said that to me in the gym, and I remember thinking like my first college up in Missouri, or my first summer up in Missouri at college, like I was thinking those same things. And it's like what this random guy had said to me in the gym that like kept me going. And that's a big part of why I want to do this, and I want to have like this YouTube channel, is because like we're talking for 30 minutes, maybe an hour, but like there is one saying or one thing that you may have said that may strike a chord with somebody, and that one thing may shift their perspective or change their perspective on anything. And that's really like why I'm doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I kind of want to loop back to a question you asked me earlier, because I ended up cutting it off a little bit, but scaling and like growing it, and then like bringing someone on to like take that next step into business. So for me, it was like I said, I was making little to no money at the time, but what I looked at was, okay, I need somebody who, because now like, you know, the demand is high enough to where I can't do it myself, and I need somebody or multiple people even, like if they can come in and I can teach them to do this the right way, I can really like let that kind of build, and they can build the product, and then I can start really taking the ability to produce more rods and more products and take that and like, you know, make sales. Now I can start, you know, really figuring out what I want to do with this company, because at the time we were so direct to consumer based, like that was the basis of our business. But my goal, whenever I kind of take over and like start doing this, and like I get out of college, I graduate and stuff, my entire goal I had, you know, on the wall was I want to ultimately, I want to be able to figure out how to build these products and sell them directly to retail stores, because there's fishing tackle stores and big ones, like, you know, even bigger ones like Bass Pro Shops or Dick's Sport, you know, that's ultimately like the big guns. But I wanted to be able to sell my products to stores, and I wanted these stores to, you know, distribute them and all that, because ultimately my vision was I don't want to be sitting in here like packing boxes and shipping them all day to individual customers one at a time. I want stores to call me and take big orders, and like they're doing the legwork and I'm just providing the product. That was my ultimate goal. So to get to that point, you have to find people who you can trust and rely on, people with good work ethics and similar mindsets, and people who are also probably willing to sacrifice in, you know, the income department. Because I mean, I'm not gonna. I didn't put out an offer and say, hey, I'm paying someone $50,000 a year to no, like not at all. I put out some like feelers, and I just said basically, hey, I'm looking for some people who can, you know, they want to come in and be involved in the fishing industry and build fishing rods. Like that's your primary thing, but that could lead into doing events and you know, and all that.
No.
And like that's the initial feelers was like, I'm hoping I can find somebody who, you know, either doesn't need, you know, the income or is willing to sacrifice a little to help me, you know, scale this, because I have already taken a couple steps in scaling. Like I had, you know, initially you're paying somebody else to build them, cut that out. Now I'm paying myself very little to build them, and I'm figuring out, you know, as you purchase more, obviously you get better prices and stuff. So I've slowly built, you know, the margins up a little bit, enough to where like, you know, hey, if I pay people piecework to build rods, like they can do, you know, they get paid per action instead of like just paying them an hourly rate or something. I thought at the time I used that as this can motivate them to get things done fast, because then they're ready for the next part of the job. Like, hey, I finished these, I need more. And like that was my ultimate thing was, if I can get people motivated to like come in and do this job and like do it efficiently, because they're going to get paid by the actual output instead of just hourly. Like that was my thought, was if I can find some people willing to do that, who want to be here and want to grind, I think it could work really well. And ultimately it did, because I got 2 guys that I brought on that, you know, they took it and ran with it, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
But there was days where like, you know, I'd run out of stuff to do, or like I couldn't afford a purchase order for more components, and you know, I'd be like a week out, like waiting for some money to come in. And I remember calling one of my guys, Tyler, because he was a firefighter, or he is a firefighter. He's still with us today, but this is 5-6 years ago. He's a firefighter, so he'd be, you know, 2 days at our shop and then 1 day at the station for 24-hour shifts. So I remember early on, like he just kind of got in a groove with the building the rods and stuff, and like, you know, I just hit a wall of like, you know, you inevitably have slow periods, and it was like, I don't have anything for him to do. I don't have any components. I can't buy any. I have bills to pay. Like I don't have the money to do it. I have some money coming in, but I hadn't got paid yet. So from my like vendors and stuff. So I had to like tell him like, hey, you know, I don't come in for the next few days. I genuinely have nothing for you to do. And that was the hardest thing for me to do, was tell my worker, like, I can't afford you right now. Like, you know, you need to stay home. Luckily he had a job there. My other guy, Jake, who's also still with us today, you know, same thing. I'm like, I don't have anything for us to do. I don't have money to buy more components. You know, I might have some of the components, but we can't finish anything. I'm sorry. Like, you know, and for about a week, I'm just waiting for money to come in. It's like the bank's like almost empty. You know, I'm not getting any money and I can't work. There's nothing I can do other than post to social media and act like the world's still spinning and happy, you know? So that, you know, I had a couple different times like stuff like that's happened, and I've had times where I've had to like skip paychecks to make sure my guys get paid and like we can still afford our components and stuff. And like those days are always like hard at the time, because you don't really know at the time, like, you know, if I skip this paycheck, is there going to be another? You know? You don't know, because I've gone through periods, and you know, you have, now I know seasonally when slower periods are and all that, but like learning that on the go, it's like, you know, skip a couple paychecks and you don't know if you're going to get another one. You know, you don't know how to just flip the switch and make it like come back. It's like, this could fail right now. And, you know, all you can do is just kind of like ride the wave out and hope, like, you know, it doesn't turn into a bigger wave and you get capsized.
Yeah, for sure. And that's how you get
and that's the risk.
Yeah.
That's the risk side of it, is like, you don't really know. You know, you can do everything perfectly, but it doesn't mean someone's going to click your freaking website and buy a product from you. Yeah. You know, you have no idea. So the risk side is like, it could just stop in an instant. I mean, there was a point early, you know, in that growth period where I'm figuring all this out, where, you know, I legitimately was like shut down for about a month of like, you know, I'm not taking orders in and I'm not selling and I'm not doing this because I felt like the process had gotten broken at some point, and the money was, I'd be literally spending so much money and it wasn't turning itself back over like it's supposed to. So the efficiency and the profit and all that, it wasn't working. So something was broken. So I kind of, had to sit down and shut that down. And then I meet with my dad and I'm like, hey, look, this is what I've got going on. And, we kind of, had to figure some stuff out of like, how can we make this profitable? If not, I'm done.
Yeah.
This is it. I'm done. I'm going to have to go get a regular job. What am I going to do? Get my real estate license or something? Like, what's next? That's where I'm at. And, obviously you start figuring some stuff out, but really the next evolution in that as a business is like now, I'm getting stuff through distributors, third party people. And like, I'm kind of constrained to higher prices and low availability a lot of times. Mm-hmm. So the next evolution really for me was, how do I like take the next step and start getting my own stuff made and component stuff, and how do I get those prices lower so that I can be profitable? Because honestly, if you're not profitable, you can't scale it, and you're not going to be profitable for a while. A lot of times, like I'm sacrificing paychecks. The end of the year, we're in the red a lot of for the first 5-6 years. It was a lot of red every tax return. It was it's discouraging a little bit because you're like, man, like, I felt like I should be looking at like green and profits, but you're not. You're routinely you're red, and then you're analyzing your spending and your reports, and there's nothing you could have done differently at the time. It's really just the evolution of like owning a business and running one and starting that. At that point, it's like you're gonna have roadblocks like that. You're gonna be in the red. You're gonna have to skip paychecks a lot of times, and you're gonna have to like figure it out. And that's really the biggest challenge to me is like those risks, like, you don't know when you take that risk if it's going to pay off or not. And that's scary.
Yeah. I think it also pays off for the two guys that you said you hired for, Tyler and Jake. Like, and that's
they're key cogs in my entire operation now. Like, I don't think I would have got to where we are now without them. And I don't think that I really, at right now, I think that they're essential in my business. And they've got very defined roles in our business now because, I mean, it's hard for people who don't know, but like, if they do any research after this video or click on like, our social media or Facebook, you can see like where we are now as a company and where I started. Like, it'll blow your mind with, how that's evolved over the years. Like, it blows my own mind. I think about it. Randomly, I'll just kind of like take a second, look around like my office even, and I'm like, how did I get here? Like, how did this happen? And like, I'm blessed, like the Lord's given some good opportunities and stuff, but like, utilizing, like you're saying earlier, your natural skills and talents and like taking risk, it absolutely is worth it to me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change a single thing.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way about taking the risk and doing what I'm doing now. And what I was going to say about them too is like they took a risk too. Like they took a lower cut, a lower pay to like try to get involved in something that they actually enjoy and something that they can
they're
like
passionate about. And like, that's the thing. It's like in the fishing world, there's these big brands like your Shimano, St. Croix, G. Loomis, and Daiwa, and like Penn, like these big companies. There's they a couple of them own 20 other companies underneath them that cover so much of the fishing industry. You're like, is it really even possible to make a dent in this? Because these 5 key guys own everything, and whether you realize or not, their other brands are your competition and they own those. So you're just like, it's like an uphill battle, and you don't really, you don't think it's possible to break into that industry. It took me a while to really like, believe that I could break into the top tier of this. Like it got to a point where, I'm making a little bit of money and like, I'm doing okay. And like, it's fun, it's entertaining, but there's still doubts in my mind of like, I don't know, can I get that, can we take this to that next level and compete with these big guys? Because like some of these have been around since like the 70s, and like there's nobody else under them. I've seen over the years now, I've seen probably hundreds of companies directly competitive to us or, in the same industry throw tons of money at it and just like try to break into it, and they hit that wall and they get knocked back and they disappear. I mean, we would go to this big trade show, ICAST, every year. And for years we would only attend, like, walk around. And that's where a lot of times I would find like suppliers and like component manufacturers and stuff that we work with now. I would find them at these shows, but you would go and you would see all the newest rod companies, like my competitors. And I don't have a booth at these shows. So, it makes you feel like, man, they just started. How are they here? Maybe they have better funding or more investors or whatever. But routinely I've seen those companies come and I've seen them go and disappear. And a lot of them are out of business and like never really, they hit that wall and they bounce off and they never come back. And like my thing was, I saw this live happening year to year. You go to ICAST when the big show where all the manufacturers are at and they're selling to retailers. Like, I didn't have the money to buy a booth at that. The booth alone was so expensive. Mm-hmm. But I'd always go to those shows and I always see these brands and I get a little discouraged because it's like, what am I doing? These guys, they just took all my, my spot. I can't compete with that. But then, you go back the next year and they're gone and out of business, and then you're like, okay, well, I wonder what they did wrong. And it was all, to me, it always seemed like it stems back to, quality of the products that they're actually producing, and like, being a company that can have cool branding and stuff is great, but like if your products suck, like people inevitably they're not going to use them after that initial burst. Mm-hmm. So routinely discouraging to see competitors come in and like steal your thunder, but keeping your eye on the end goal is always like, I can do it. We can do this. We just got to keep at it. Mm-hmm. We might not be even close to selling what they're selling or whatever, but I think our products are good enough to compete with them. That's the biggest thing. Is I knew what I had was special in the products. Getting from here to there was the big challenge. So there was always like, there was always a little bit of doubts and a little bit of concerns and like how do we do this? How do we really take that next step? And having people like the Jake and the Tyler like to be there to help you grow it and learn, and then also like scale it. How do I make their workloads heavier and them still be able to like do it, and like and complete those tasks. And we all grew together. We're all relatively young, and I've become good friends with both of them, and it's fun utilizing all of our different talents because we're all a little bit different from each other, but like utilizing our talents to grow the business has been like, it's been really satisfying and really fun. Just seeing that evolve over time has been incredible. Cool.
Well, I got one last question, and this is for anybody. Obviously, anybody who makes it this far is pretty invested into it and whatever you have to say. For someone who's like 18, maybe they're in high school and like they don't know what they want to do, but like they know they want to be like a business owner. They know they want to like do something along those lines. Like, what would you tell them? Like, if it was your own son or daughter, like what would you tell them?
So obviously money can always be a factor of like what you actually can achieve and stuff, but I think like whether it's a service-based industry or a product-based industry, like if you have something you're passionate about and you think like this could be really cool and really fun and something that you would enjoy doing, I say 100% you go for it. But in how you go for it, I think a really, really big key aspect is your social media presence and your, the actual people that like relate with your brand of whatever industry you're in. I think that right there can like sustain you and get you to, from point A to point B to point C, is like getting your brand awareness there. Like, you don't have to necessarily have a fine-tuned system and product. Like, people don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Like, people have no idea. Half the time people had no idea I'm building rods in my parents' house at first. Like, so the perception of reality is a big thing. So I think like if you're 18 and you're wanting to do something, like, really put a big focus on making yourself a presentable as if you are a big dog. Act like a big dog. You may not be a big dog, act like one. Yeah. Make people believe that you're a big dog. You know, you got this business, and like, you don't want to appear weak. You don't want to appear like you don't have it figured out. That's the thing, is like, I don't want to say fake it till you make it, but I think like really like focusing on your brand itself versus like the process behind the scenes, I think is huge, because like you can grow your brand without necessarily having to like spend millions of dollars in this and like, have to perfect the process. You can perfect the process as you go. It's proven. I've done it. We had a lot of what I would consider bad products for a while that I thought were okay. And like we improved and we got better. But really the big thing, I think the brand awareness and the growth, whether it's social media content or, just general pictures of whatever you're selling, like doing that really well, I think is the best way to start a business, in my opinion, because perception is reality, right? So eventually the perception you're creating is going to become your reality if you really stick to it. And I think like anybody who's starting out, you're not going to have it figured out. You're not going to know all the answers. Develop people that you can lean on. So people who are older, more experienced, or different industries. Like I think one thing that's helped with my success in this business that I've built is the open and willingness to listen to people. Like I don't have it all figured out. Like I when I eventually have hired a sales manager a few years ago who has just endless amount of experience in my industry, I listen to him. I say, hey, you've been around the block. What would you do with this other company at this point? Or what can we do better? And I listen because his feedback and his perspective is different. And I'm like, hey, I'm here to soak up knowledge. I'm going to listen to everybody and I'm going to take that information and then I'm going to make decisions with my perspective and their perspective. So leaning on people and getting anybody who you think might have some wisdom for you, I think is valuable as all get out, because those people are going to be the ones that like they may just have a different opinion, but it sparks something in your brain like, oh, you know what? That's a great idea, but I think I can make it better. Or, I can apply this in my business or my philosophies. Look at other brands too. That's another thing, is like, look at people who are competitive with you, what they're doing and what you think they're doing well and what you think that you don't like about what they're doing. And like, that's how you like scale your business and you grow it, is like you look at what other people are doing successfully and what they're doing bad. And you take that, you look at reviews of what they're doing, what people are complaining about. Make that a point of, I'm not going to have those. I don't want people saying the same thing about me. So like those are all like, leaning on, other people, and it doesn't have to be like old man wisdom in the park.
Yeah.
Like even you, like I've come to you before, you have no knowledge of my business, my industry. And I'm just like, hey, I need an outside perspective. And like, you've got kind of a creative mind. What do you think of this idea? And I've thrown stuff off of you before because I just value like a different perspective, and like maybe you just see something from a different lens that like I can use. So like utilizing people in your life to develop your brand and your grow and your products and stuff is essential. You don't necessarily have market research, or maybe you can't afford to do market research. Well, your competitors are free, open market research. Use your competitors in whatever industry you're in to, figure out, kind of do's and don'ts and what you should avoid, and kind of, maybe even if it's a branding thing too, like see what they're doing good, and, you can emulate it. Don't copy it.
Yeah.
Don't duplicate it, but use those practices to help, improve your own business. And then I'd say the last thing is just, it's easy to say like, stay positive, but even whenever like, crap hits the fan and like stuff's difficult and like, you have to skip a paycheck or two, like you said earlier, like you just keep pushing and keep like grinding and figure it out. There's ways, if something's not working, like something you're doing isn't working, reevaluate and try something else, or like add to what you're doing. How can this isn't working right now, how can I make it work? Well, if I do this better, maybe this. You got to keep trial and error, but you have to keep pushing. That's the ultimate thing. You can't stop. Don't give up on your dream until you absolutely are out. If it crashes and burns and fails, at least you put it all out there and you gave it the effort. I think that's a big thing, is like I don't have a lot of regrets. Obviously, I'm thankful, I'm blessed that it's worked out for me. But I know that I absolutely have given full effort, and like, I didn't really leave anything on the table. I tried and did everything, and, it's worked out for me, but I'd have no regrets if it failed tomorrow. If I failed tomorrow and lost it all, I had no regrets.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree on that. Like what I'm doing now, if it crashed and burned, and totally worth it.
The big thing I think people don't realize is like, ultimately, like life never stops. Time doesn't stop. Nothing's going to stop for you. Like, So if you take this risk and it doesn't work out, I mean, you'll be okay. Like,
yeah, really, what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah, like
as long as you're not being stupid about it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I think like you can recover, you can do something else, but like if you don't try, you're gonna regret it.
Yeah. For sure. Well, hey, thanks for watching and peace.